Station Mouse by Meg McLaren. This is about a little mouse called Maurice and the 4 rules to be a good station mouse. My favourite bit was when he helped a little boy and break the rules. This is a great book. This is fun.
Hello everyone, my name is Meg McLaren and I am an author and an illustrator, and I'm really excited to be here at this year's Wigtown Book Festival. The festival's a little bit different this year because it's an online festival. So I'm in my house all the way up at the top of Scotland in Inverness, and you're hopefully somewhere in your house tucked up cosy watching these videos. Now, like I said, I'm an author, which means that I write the words for books. But I'm also an illustrator, which means that I draw all of the pictures too. So we're going to read one of my books today. We are going to read The Station Mouse, which is published by Andersen Press. Now, once we've read our book, we're also going to do some drawing. So you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil or some pens and some crayons. And if you have any questions, you can type them in the box below this video and I will answer them at the end of the video. But first we're going to read our story. So I'm going to turn my camera around so you can see all of the pictures. The Station Mouse. This is a map of the station. You find them in railway stations if you've never been there before, so that you know where everything is. So we can see the platforms. This is where you catch your train. It tells you where the cafe is, where the bathrooms are, where you buy your ticket. It helps you find your way around. But this is a station mouse map, and it lets all of the station mice know where the good places and the bad places in the station are for them. So right here we can see it says, this is the most dangerous part of the station. No places to hide. So right in the middle of the floor is a place that Maurice doesn't want to go because all the passengers would be able to see him there. Now this is the old station mouse who's retiring, and he's telling Maurice what to do because it's Maurice's first day. So we can see Maurice is getting his hat and his station mouse handbook. Now this says lost property. That's where Maurice works. Maurice had been told to stay out of sight. Rule 1. A station mouse must remain unseen. That was the first rule in the Station Mouse Handbook, and Maurice liked following the rules. This is the lost property department. So if anyone leaves anything behind in the station, it gets picked up, they put a little label on it, and it gets put on a shelf in case the person who owns it comes back to get it. Can anyone see Maurice on this page? He's very, very small. There he is. He's right there. At night, when the station was empty, it was Maurice's job to collect all the things left behind that day, though sometimes he needed a little help. Then he slept late into the morning because of Rule 2. A station mouse must never go out in the daytime. That's when the station is at its busiest. Passengers, you see, are always rushing and trains must be caught. So this is Maurice's little house. This is the inside of the hole we saw earlier. Outside is the train station, which gets very busy during the day, and that's when Maurice likes to have his nap. The life of a station mouse can be a solitary one, so Maurice liked to keep himself busy. In quieter moments, he wondered why no one came back for their lost things. Perhaps the passengers did not want them after all. So we can see that Maurice He's got a sandwich, doesn't he? And he's sitting. Where is he sitting? He's on the clock. And what colour is the clock? It's yellow. So when we turn the page and we see that Maurice has a sandwich and he's sitting on the yellow, we know where Maurice is sitting, don't we? We know that he's still on the clock. And the clock is very high up, so he can get a whole view of the station and no one can see him. But Maurice, he looks a little shocked, doesn't he? He's gone, oh! Can anyone see what Maurice has noticed? What has made Maurice so worried? What is Maurice's job? He finds lost things, doesn't he? Can anyone see anything in the station that might be lost? Can you see this little blanket that the boy has dropped? That's what Maurice has noticed. Do you think the little boy wants the blanket back? I think he does, and Maurice has just been wondering about this, hasn't he? Whether people want their lost things. So what if he was wrong? What if each lost item was missed and Maurice could do nothing to help? Because the most important rule, the one he must never break, was Rule 3. A station mouse must never approach the passengers. Not ever. But Maurice hasn't thought about this, has he? He's just jumped off the clock, run down the wall, right into the middle of the station. Do you remember what we learned about the middle of the station? It's the most dangerous place for a station mouse to be, isn't it? Now, there's a reason why these rules exist. Ah! A mouse! Passengers do not like mice. Quick, catch it! A mouse? Ugh! Disgusting! It's getting away! Maurice would only be safe if he stayed out of sight. Where did it go? Can you see it? But Maurice is tucked into this little hole in the brickwork, hasn't he? Mice and passengers don't mix. That was what the handbook had taught him. But Maurice, he's still got the blanket, doesn't he? And he can see the little boy. Do we think the little boy still wants his blanket back? I do. Do we think Maurice will get it back to him? Let's find out. But for the very first time, Maurice knew where a lost thing belonged, and that it was wanted after all. So Maurice has darted out, hasn't he? And he's running through the station, but he's so small he keeps getting knocked over until he finally ends up in front of these shoes. Do you know whose shoes they are? They're the little boy's, aren't they? We can see that he's wearing yellow shoes just like this. Now this is a speech bubble. That means that someone in the book is talking. And the person is so big, I couldn't even fit them in the book. But we can see their big shadow, can't we? And the person says, "Which way did it go?" But the little boy, he knows Maurice is behind his shoe, doesn't he? And he doesn't want this big person to find Maurice, so he points the wrong way. And Maurice gives him his blanket back. That's when he discovered that something is only lost until it is found. Returning it was the right thing to do. Maurice felt better than he ever had before. "Oh, there it is! After it!" But not for long. Maurice decided he was going to mind his own business from then on. So he's run back to his house and he's hiding, but someone is speaking outside of the mouse hole. "Did you see where that mouse went?" "What mouse?" "The mouse. He was just here." "Here?" "We've got to find him." The rules were there to protect him. Ring, 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 ring. Which brings us to the fourth rule. Rule 4. If the bell rings, pull the alarm and return to your duties. Maurice is having a think about this, isn't he? A station mouse must never, ever, hello, answer the bell. Excuse me, I think you dropped your hat. Now everyone at home, who can tell me that they noticed that Maurice had dropped his hat? Can anyone tell me when he dropped his hat? Because we've been able to see his little spiky hair for a little while, haven't we? Nope, hasn't got his hat yet. Hold on. There we go. This is when Maurice dropped his hat. Well done to everyone who noticed. Now, who do we think is bringing the hat back? Who do you think it is? It's a little boy, isn't it? Now, if we look on this page, we can see where Maurice's office actually is. It's very low down under the ticket office. And that's why no one ever finds it. It's so small. But we can see here, it's the little boy giving his hat back. And there's a little clue. It's a visual clue. That means it's a clue that you can see with your eyes. So what colour is the little boy's jumper? And what colour is the little boy's shoes? They're yellow, aren't they? Now if we look back here, what colour is the speech bubble? It's yellow, isn't it? That means that every time we see the little boy speak, he speaks in yellow. So we know that it was him. He was the one looking for Maurice to give his hat back. Maurice began to wonder if it was time for a new rule. Because some passengers did like mice, and the rest, well, they just hadn't got to know him yet. But that was going to change. So Maurice has decorated all around his little hole so that people can find him. And his new department is the lost and found. He's going to try to return every item that he finds. And there is only one rule. Take care of your station mouse, and your station mouse will take care of you. And there's a new leaflet in the train station. It lets everyone know that Maurice is working in the station and that if you see him, you shouldn't go screaming after him because he's just trying to help. And he's written himself a little note. Remember, you may be very small, but you can make a big difference. Do you think Maurice is going to make a big difference now? Yeah, I do too. Hello again. I hope you all enjoyed reading The Station Mouse. Now we're going to do some drawing. I'm going to show you how to draw your very own Maurice. So get your piece of paper and your pencil ready. Okay, I'm going to show you how to draw your very own station mouse. I'm going to draw in pencil. These are some of my favourite pencils. And you can draw with whatever you like. If you prefer crayon or paint or pen, use whatever makes you happy. The reason I draw in pencil is because I like the way it feels when I draw. I like the way it feels on the paper. I like that I can draw really light lines or I can draw really hard lines if I press harder. I like these big chunky pencils because they draw really nice big dark patches of colour. I like these mechanical pencils because they draw really thin lines and they're good for details. But you use whatever you want to use. Now I'm going to draw in coloured pencil. This is just a regular black colouring pencil and it's so that it shows up better so that you can see it. Now to draw Maurice, what we're going to do first is we're going to draw a little hill. So if you can draw quite lightly, we'll add his fur later, but we're going to draw a little hill just like that. And you can copy along with me, and if you get stuck, you can always pause the video or rewind it or rewatch it. Don't worry, okay? Now we're going to draw the rest of his body, which looks a bit like an egg. We're going to draw a big curvy tummy right down here. So we're going to lightly draw a shape like this. So the top half is going to be his face and the bottom half is going to be his tummy. So imagine where his face goes, right in the middle, put your pencil, that's where we're going to draw his nose. I always draw the nose first because it's right in the middle of your face and it makes it easier to know where the eyes and the mouth go. So once we've got his nose, we know that his eyes go above his nose, don't they? And they go either side of his nose like that. Now Maurice's smile starts in the middle. It looks like two little smiles sitting right next to each other, doesn't it? So it's one smile and then another, and that makes his little chubby cheeks. And then you can draw some little dots on each cheek. I draw 3 on each cheek, and that's where his whiskers come out. So if you want to draw whiskers, what we do is we draw really lightly, but really quick little lines like this. If you want to make your whiskers really long and wriggly, you can. If you don't want any whiskers at all, leave them off. It is up to you. The point of this is not to draw a perfect Maurice just like me. The point is to draw a Maurice the way you want him to be. I'm just helping show you how I draw my Maurice. But if you want to draw him differently, you go ahead. Because the differences are what is going to make yours look awesome. They're going to look special because they're yours. So for his arm, we're going to draw 2 very light little lines pointing upwards, just like this. His arm is going to be waving. And on this one, we're going to draw a little thumb. And then we're going to draw 1, 2, 3 little fingers and join it up just like this. If you want to draw some waving lines, you just draw some little lines like this. That makes it look like his arm is waving. His other arm is going to be on his hip. So we're going to draw a line that comes down, a line that rejoins his body, and then a little bump. That's going to be his hand. Now the reason I've been drawing so lightly is because I like to add his fur in. If you want to draw fur, you draw lots of little short lines. And that makes him look fuzzy. Can you see how that makes him look fuzzy? So this is what I do. I draw the shape I want very lightly, and then I make him look fuzzy all over. You can practice on his tummy too if you like. That's how we can show that his tummy is a different colour. We can draw some little fuzzy lines. Now he looks a bit like a happy egg, doesn't he, with arms? So we need some legs, don't we? Maurice has got really short legs. So put your pencil where his nose is, draw an invisible line all the way down, and in the middle here, we're going to draw a very short little line. And either side of it, we're going to draw a line that curves inwards. Can you see how that curves inwards? And then one that does the opposite on the other side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to join all of these lines up across the bottom. And that's going to make his little legs. And you can put little toe details in if you like. You can make his legs fuzzy if you like. And then we're going to draw his tail, but because his tail starts at the back of him, what we're going to do is, because it's a really long tail, we're going to start it at the side of his foot. We're going to draw a really long wriggly line, as if it's coming out from behind him. And you can make it a little bit thicker at one edge if you like. And I always draw some little lines on it just to give it a little bit of detail. There we've got his tail. And then we can draw Maurice standing anywhere we want, we want to give him a little bit of ground to stand on. I always put Maurice outside because Maurice works really hard in the train station, and I think it's nice for him to get some sunlight, but you could draw him anywhere you wanted. You could draw him on a bookshelf, you could draw him on the train station, you could draw him next to something really big or really small, but I always like to put him outside. So we're missing a couple of things, aren't we? We're missing his ears. Now Maurice has got 2 ears, and we're going to try and make them the same size as each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a tall line up, and then we're going to curve it all the way back down. Now again, I'm doing it lightly so that I can then go over it with my fuzzy lines. So you can make his ears as big or as small as you like, make him as fuzzy as you like, and then inside his ears he's got another line because the inside of his ears is pink. So I always draw an extra little line just to show that it's a different colour. If you're going to be colouring your Maurice in, then you can leave this part, but I always just shade these in just a little bit just to show that they're slightly different colour. Now he looks like a perfectly good mouse, doesn't he? But he's not a station mouse yet, is he? What does he need? He needs his uniform, which is his station mouse hat. And where do you wear your hat? On your head. So between his ears, we're going to draw a little curved line, just like this. This is going to be the peak of his hat. And you can colour that in if you like. And then just like his legs, we're going to draw a little line that curves inwards. And then one that does the opposite on the other side. And then we are just going to join these two lines up. I'm going to draw an extra little line because he's got a little yellow band on his hat, doesn't he? So I'm going to leave that blank. And I'm just going to colour the top of his hat in. I'm going to add a little bit more grass because I like drawing grass. You could also draw a sun or some clouds, just a little bit. Somewhere for him to be. You could draw some birds in the distance. You could put him on the beach, in the sand or by the water, anywhere you like. Now, the only thing we need to do is to sign our drawings because that's what illustrators do. So my name is Meg, so I'm going to write Meg at the bottom of mine. And that is how you draw your very own station mouse. So hopefully you all now have your very own Maurice, and I would love to see pictures of them if you can find a way to send them to me. I've had so much fun reading and drawing with you today. Remember, if you have any questions, you can type them below and I will answer them straight after this video. I'd like to say a big thank you to Wigtown Book Festival for asking me to be here today, and you can go to their website, wigtownbookfestival.com, if you want to buy a copy of the Station Mouse or if you'd like to donate to support the book festival. Thank you for watching.
Hello, and a big thank you to you all for joining us here this afternoon. I'm Anne Barclay and I'm the Operational Director of Wigtown Book Festival, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Meg to our Big Wig Children's programme today. Meg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
That was an absolutely delightful event and we really enjoyed being able to draw Maurice. And you mentioned there that children can post us their pictures, and you certainly can. Please take a photograph and pop them into the comments or tag us on the Big Wig Facebook page, or you can email them to us, questions@wigtownbookfestival.com. We would love to see them and we would love to share them with you, Meg.
I'd love to.
So, Meg, we absolutely adore the Station Mouse, but it's not your first book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your other titles?
Yeah, I have two other books that I wrote and illustrated. The first one is called Life is Magic, you can see. And that was my first book. It's also published by Andersen Press, who did the Station Mouse, and it's about a magician and his troop of assistants who are all rabbits. And one day, one of the tricks goes very wrong and the magician gets turned into a rabbit as well. So it's all about what happens and if they manage to turn him back. And my second book is Pigeon Pi, which is a mystery book. I'm a really big mystery fan. I love detective stories. And it's all about a detective pigeon called Murray. And there's a feather thief about town and he's trying to solve the case and help one of the birds that goes missing that he meets.
They sound absolutely wonderful, and this is probably quite a difficult question, Meg, but do you have a favourite character from all of your books?
The main characters from all of them are all sort of based on me, so it's quite hard to separate them because they're all a little bit like me, but my favourite, I think, is this one here. Her name is V, and she is a canary, and she's very positive, and she's got a real kind of can-do attitude. She's very, very brave, and I think she's the hero of Pigeon Pi, actually, but I think because she's kind of not like me, she's my favourite.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. And of the three books, do you have a favourite, or is that a bit of a tricky question to answer?
That is a tricky one. I sort of have a soft spot for Life is Magic because it was my very first one, and I have a soft spot for Pigeon Pi because it's quite a hard one to read out loud because you have to do lots of voices and things. So sometimes I feel like I've neglected it a little bit because it's harder to read, but I actually really like that one. I think it's my favourite at the moment. But I like the Station Mouse too because it's quite a nice one to read to people as well. It's quite a fun one to read.
Well, we certainly loved your reading earlier on. So moving on to the Station Mouse, we've got questions coming through here, and just a reminder, do pop them into the comments box below or beside the video stream. But Benny's asking, why did you choose to write about a mouse?
I think what I do is when I'm looking for an idea, I just start drawing, and I draw anything that I can think of, and I draw lots of animals. I prefer drawing animals to people, so I usually start drawing animals, and I draw all the animals that I like drawing, all the animals that I think are really interesting at that time. And some animals are just more fun to draw than others, and mice are really, really fun to draw, and I like that they're so small. And so once I have a drawing that I like, that's when I start trying to see if I can find a story about it. So when I first drew a drawing of Maurice as a little mouse, there was just something about him that I thought he could have a story of his own, you know? But I tend just to draw kind of my favourite animals. I love birds as well. That's why I did Pigeon Pi. I loved rabbits when I was little. So I kind of just draw my favourite animals.
Fantastic. And so this leads up actually really nicely into the next question. So you drew the mouse, you drew Maurice first. Where did the rest of the idea for the story come from?
I've got my first drawing of Maurice. I've made it bigger. Hold on. That's the very first drawing of Maurice. And once I have a drawing that I like, what I do is I try and imagine what that character does all day. So I ask myself lots and lots of questions. And he's got a little suitcase in that drawing. So I had to think, well, why does he have a suitcase? Is he going on holiday? Or did he find the suitcase? And who would have a suitcase? And where would he find one? And that's when I had the idea that he might work in the lost and found department. And so then I started drawing lots of pictures of him finding things and trying to find out, well, where is the lost and found department? And I decided a train station would be really fun. And I start to think about all these things about where he lives, where he works, and that helps me put my story together because I've got so much information about him now that I can actually start to write a story about it.
And that's really lovely. One of the questions that's come in as well is the station based on a real station somewhere?
The window that Maurice lives in, the little round one, I saw that in a train station. I think it was Garton, which is near where I live. I think that's where I saw that window, and I thought that would make a great little mouse hole. Some of it is based on Edinburgh Station because they've got that kind of green pillared look. And I spent a lot of time looking at Paddington Station and some of the London stations as well, if you go into a train station, the most interesting thing for me is if you look up, because the way the ceilings and everything are done, they're quite old-fashioned buildings and they're put together in really interesting ways. So I kind of stole a little bit from lots of train stations just to build my own. Oh, and Newcastle Station, that's where the archways, I saw those in Newcastle.
Fantastic. So Rowan would like to know, how did Maurice get the job as the station mouse, and what happened to the old station mouse?
Well, the old station mouse is in the book. He's at the start. His name is Geoffrey, and he retired. And if you look at this part of the book, if you have a copy of this book, this is the old station mouse. His name's Geoffrey, and these are the station mice who have worked there before. And what happens is you just get a bit old and you want to go sit in the sun and read your book, and someone younger takes over. So that's Maurice. So Maurice got the job by coming to meet Geoffrey, and I guess he just applied for the job like you would normally. And they decided that he was a really good candidate and that he would take care of things. So they gave Maurice the job. But Geoffrey's, he's having a great time.
Hopefully reading lots of books somewhere in the sunshine, as you say. And Maurice is an absolutely adorable character, Meg. What were the really important characteristics for you when you were drawing him? What did you want to come across?
I think it's important that he looks eager and that he looks kind and helpful. Like he should look like he's ready to work and that he enjoys his job. That was a really important part, is trying to figure out who he was to realize that Maurice loves the station and that he loves his job. And that should hopefully be implied through looking at him. You should be able to see how much he loves it. Because I drew some pictures really early on of him looking a little bit bored at work and bored in the station. And it wasn't Maurice. I could tell it wasn't him. So it was really important that people could see that he really loved what he did.
That comes across really, really clearly through the illustrations. And I have to say that one of the things that I absolutely love about the book is the illustrations, and it's the level of detail within them. So can you tell us a bit about that? So how long did it take you to write and to draw the book, and what's the process?
The process is a bit of a weird one. Publishing is a little bit strange. Everything takes a very long time. So when I looked back through my sketchbook, I think the story came together very quickly and just in a couple of weeks. And then I try and fit it all into a book, because a picture book has to be a certain number of pages. So I have to make sure that my story fits beginning to end in the length of a picture book. And then I have to take it to my publisher and show it to the editor and the art director. And if they like the story and decide we're going to make that book, they make lots of suggestions and we have lots of chats about the story. And we try and make it as good as it can possibly be. Because they're so short, all the words have to be in the right place and they have to be saying something through the story, and all the pictures have to be telling us something. So there's a lot of weeks of just sending ideas back and forth and editing, and that can take months really, until finally you're ready to do the actual final artwork. I think the artwork takes, about 5 months, maybe a little bit longer, because it was a very detailed book. But some people spend years doing illustrations and some people just work really, really quickly. So it's different for every illustrator. But I think 4 to 5 months, I think I spent on the illustrations. And they are very detailed. I got a little bit carried away, I think. But I think it's important when you're making a world up, when Maurice is a mouse who, he thinks and feels and acts on his own. So we have to really establish where Maurice lives and that he is a little character in and to himself. So I find that all the little background details, they really help kind of make his world real to the readers, hopefully. So that's why it's so detailed. Also, it's just fun to read little notes in the background. I think I always enjoy that in books.
One of the questions that I wanted actually to ask the audience was whether anybody noticed through those little notes in the background what the name of the little boy was who lost his blanket. So we'll leave that out there and see whether anybody comes up with the right answer on the comments.
I think the little boy that I named the boy after is watching today.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's lovely. Hopefully he'll be able to answer that question then. As I say, the detail just really was beautiful, and every time I read the book I find something new in the illustrations that I hadn't noticed before. And I think my particular favourite is the little spiders who pop up on not all but almost every page. They seem to have a character all of their own as well.
Yeah, that's Monty, and he gets promoted at the end of the book. If you look very closely, he ends up with a little, I think he draws the hat on, but he's in the official photo of Maurice when he's letting everyone know they work in the station. So that's Monty. I think there's a little drawing of him on a bottle top. It's worth having a look again. I think there's a picture of him.
There's definitely a moral there, isn't there, in terms of not being frightened of mice or spiders.
Yes.
What was your favourite thing in the book to draw?
I can't think. I liked drawing the drawings where he's carrying lots of things. I like those. And the same with the Lost Property Department, the cupboard full of stuff. Because I quite often run out of ideas of what I want to draw. So what I do is I just look around me. So there's lots of things that I own on the shelves, and lots of like the pencils he's carrying, I've got pencils like that, and the sunglasses. I sort of base them all on things that are around me, so it's quite nice to look at them and see things that are mine. And also people in the book, I quite often draw people I know into the books when I'm trying to do crowds and things, so it's quite a nice little kind of personal touch to look back and think, oh, that's someone I know, or that's something that I have.
Do you tell the people, or do they spot themselves?
Sometimes they spot themselves. I think my sister's a little bit annoyed that she hasn't popped up yet. But sometimes they do spot themselves. And the station mouse, the people who are in it spotted themselves.
That's really sweet. It's a really nice way to include family and friends in your work. Jake is asking, do you prefer writing the story or drawing the pictures?
That's a really good question. I think for me, it's very hard to separate them, because when I'm writing the book, sometimes I'll write the words and then I'll think of some words and then I'll just draw a picture of what it looks like instead, because sometimes it's faster to explain what I mean just by drawing a picture. But I do a lot of writing, and then what happens is I end up editing it. So I end up taking a lot of the words out and just having the words that I really, really need. I think I sort of slightly prefer writing, but I do find it hard to separate the two.
And when did you know that you wanted to write and illustrate books?
I think I knew I wanted to write books probably when I was like 8 or 9 years old, but I didn't know that you could write and illustrate them. I think that was the thing. Like, I didn't read a lot of picture books when I was little. So when I was in my 20s, which I'm sure sounds very old to a lot of the young people watching, that's when I realized that I could do both. I could write my story and draw the pictures, and it would just be one thing. And that's when I fell in love with picture books. But I've always written things, and I always drew all through school as well. I just never really thought about putting them together until I was much older.
What was the first story you remember writing then, if it's been something that's interested you since you were as young as 8? Can you remember?
No, I wrote a lot of really terrible rhyming poems, like funny poems. They were supposed to be funny, and I would write them about people I knew. But I don't think I drew any pictures for them. I don't know. I've written some mystery things when I was younger, but my early memory is writing some really dodgy poems.
Brilliant. What's the moral of the story?
The moral. I think it's important to give people a chance and to be kind to people because you can be kind to them, not because you think they're going to give you something in return. But I think it's also important for kids to know that rules are there to help you. They're there to make you safe. But it's also a good idea to question why things are in place, because sometimes rules get outdated and they change, and we don't understand why they're there. So if you see something that you don't think is right, then maybe you should fix it, or say that you maybe don't agree. I just think it's good to question everything around you. But I think overall, it's just about being kind to people. And if you're kind to them, then generally they're kind back, you know?
I think that's definitely a really sound moral and a good note to live by. Isla is asking, did you always want to write books for children, or would you consider writing for an older audience?
I think I would consider writing for older children, but I guess I think a bit like a child. Like I like young books. I love picture books. I love young fiction. There's stories that I still really enjoy reading, and it's just that, I don't know, it's just the way I think. I don't really think in terms of writing for grown-ups. I always end up making it for a younger audience, and it's just kind of a place I like to be. They're just the books that I like to read, so they're the books I like to make as well.
What was your favourite book growing up?
I have a hard time remembering books when I was little, but I read a lot of Tintin. I love Tintin, and I read a lot of Asterix and Obelix. It was a lot of comics. I read Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes. It was all comic books when I was little. Yeah, I think Tintin was one of my favourites because he's kind of solving things as he goes.
Maurice gives himself a really important message at the end of the book. If the audience are wondering what things that they could do to make a difference, is there anything that you would suggest to them?
I think the important thing, this is what I was thinking about when I was writing the book, and it's probably one of the morals, is that if you're very small, you can make a big difference. And I think to make a difference in the world sometimes is seems like such a big task. That's why I was thinking when I wrote the book. The world seemed like a very scary place, and I thought, well, there's nothing I can do about it. And I kept reading things that said, well, if you do something small, that makes a difference. So it can be something as small as speaking to your neighbor and making sure they're okay, or helping them rake leaves in their garden. It can be as simple as collecting litter, or, you know, it can be something really small, but it just makes a small change. And those little changes can really kind of avalanche into big changes. It could just be smiling at people in the street as you go past if they look unhappy. It doesn't have to be something massive. You can make a real difference just by changing one little thing, just being nice to one other person, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a big change. But I think these little things really add up.
I would agree completely, and I think one of the things for me, Meg, that has been really apparent during lockdown was that little things can make a big difference. One of the things that made me smile every day when I went out on my walk was the rainbows and the pictures and drawings that children had put into the window, and they really grew to mean such a lot. And I know that I wasn't the only person that they made smile, so I think again, that's really sound advice. Sarah is asking, are there any other writers that you look to for inspiration and that you enjoy reading?
Yeah, my list is probably very long. I love Chris Houghton. He's a picture book author illustrator, and his books are amazing. They're nearly perfect, and that's a bit infuriating, but they're wonderful books. Chris Houghton is great. I love Oliver Jeffers because he changes his approach every time he makes a book. Rebecca Green is an illustrator who I really love. She makes beautiful paintings, and I don't paint, so I love looking at those. But basically, if you go into any library or bookshop, there's just a ton of great picture book makers, and there's kind of inspiration everywhere. I think my bookshelves, you can't see them here, but they're just full of different people and different books. And I just think there's so many amazing picture book makers at the moment that we're kind of spoiled for choice, really.
Yeah, we certainly shouldn't run out of good bedtime stories, I don't think, anytime soon. We've just got a couple of minutes left, Meg, but Zoe's asking, will Maurice have any other adventures?
I don't know. I did write another story, but I just kind of wrote it because I'd thought of it and I wanted to get it out of my head. So I don't know if it's a good story for other people or if it's just a good story for me, if you know what I mean. I haven't shown it to anyone, so I don't know what anyone thinks of it, but I wrote it just so that I would stop thinking about it. But I don't know if it'll ever be published or not, or if I'll even show it to anyone. I think it was just something that I needed to kind of see through to the end. And then I can stop thinking about it.
In which case, then, can you tell us what might be next for you, or is that a secret at the moment?
I've got a new book coming out that I finished during lockdown, and it's not out. This is the thing about publishing; it won't be out till I think August next year. But it's called Peep. I can tell you that much, and it's about dogs this time. And that's with Andersen Press as well. So I think it's out next August.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. And one of the questions that I had actually for you, Meg, is what's the worst thing you've ever lost?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. What's the worst thing I ever lost? Well, we lost my sister once. We found her again. We lost her in, I think it was Kelvin Grove Art Gallery when she was little. And I don't remember losing her, but I remember when we found her and she had a little brown rabbit that she'd found in the lost and found, like a cuddly toy brown rabbit. And she got to bring that home with her. And I think she called it Lost and Found. But yeah, we lost my sister once.
So your sister has appeared in the story, she's just not in a physical form yet. Sadly, we've run out of time, Meg. If anyone who's watching would like to buy a copy of The Station Mouse, please visit the Wigtown Book Festival bookshop, which is wigtownbookfestival.com/shop, and you can find it there. Meg, thank you so much for being here today. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you, and we really cannot wait to see what comes next.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the questions.
Hi there, I'm Anne-Marie Allen, and this is a story about making a friend during lockdown. It's called Mouse. The sun disappeared ahint the clouds, and a breeze sprang up from nowhere. Ella shivered and reached for the railing to pull herself up. The bottom step was too cold to sit on any longer. It was time to go inside. She hesitated, awkwardly balanced between sitting and standing, when she saw the leaves tremble at the bottom of the hedge. A tiny creature crept out. A mouse with black button eyes, great big ears, and a pair of feet that looked too big for its body. Hardly daring to breathe, Ella lowered herself back on the step. The mouse stared up at her, whiskers twitching, wee paws folded across its furry belly. She'd never seen him before, but maybe that was because she'd been too busy to notice. Now she was home almost all the time. There were hardly any cars or passers-by, and nobody came tramping up and down the steps to the front door. This definitely wasn't his first visit, thought Ella, watching him run straight for the bird table to snatch up the seeds off the ground and stuff them into his mouth. Cheeks bulging, he turned and looked at her, then scurried back to the hedge. A quick flick of his tail, and he was gone. "Bye, Mouse," whispered Ella. "I'll see you again tomorrow."